All right, guys, here's the nitpick video on this Sight VLT 29A2. So, first glance, the build quality appears to be pretty good on the frame and the welds and everything, but then there's just like little things on this that actually are, I don't know, just show poor quality. So, here, no grommets on this, and now like normally, this wouldn't be a big issue, but on this e-bike, this is where the battery is, so the more dust that gets in here, the worse it's actually going to be over time. And with this bike specifically, there's no way to access the battery, take it out to clean it without dropping this motor assembly. So we classify that as bitch number one. The second bitch, and let's see if I can get into it. Yeah, you guys should be able to see those pretty clearly. Those are some rounded off hex bolts. And my operating assumption right now here, let's let refocus, is that those two and those two, I'm assuming they hold in the battery. So when I was expelling it, I didn't really think it was a big issue, but the problem is that like, I probably could get them out, but I couldn't get them back in. And talking with the dealer, that's a factory done. So there could be a pretty high chance that this happens again, which it's kind of annoying. The overall, like the bottle cage hardware, just zoom in on it. It's just like the world's cheapest bolts. They aren't stripped because I like to think I know what I'm doing. I'm doing a bolt. And then let's move on to here. So there's a couple, this is really bad design overall. We have a chain guard here. We have the rear derailleur cable. Issue one with this design, this is constantly going to get abrasion from the chain. So if I had to continue, I don't know, if I get a replacement for this bike, I'd have to replace this. Issue number two is this chain guard actually physically can't go lower to where it should be. Like this is actually a useless piece of kit right now. So like there's a bolt here, it's on a slider and you slide down. You actually can't physically slide it down because both there's clearance issue with this, and there's clearance issue with the actual chain itself. So I would chalk that up to poor design and or bad manufacturing on a specific part because there's no way to line it this way. The third thing that I think is kind of embarrassing, it's gonna be a little bit hard to get on video. You see this gray area right here? That's unpainted frame. So yeah, like not a terribly big issue. So obviously what they've done is they put on this bracket before painting the frame, and then that allowed them to not get any spray in there. So if you have a carbon bike, not gonna be an issue, but obviously on this aluminum one, it's an issue. And then let's just look at this, like overall this cable routing, which in my opinion is kind of a joke. So this one, well done. And excluding this obviously, but I'll flip around the bike and get into the other issues I see. All right, so before we get back down to that cable routing, I really need to point out how poorly done this button is. So this button could be why my bike failed overall, but you have a metal CNC piece and you have a button that doesn't have enough spring to it. If you're going down to descent, you will hear that just to do with the button rattling around. So overall, not impressed with this whole design. In all reality, this should be the only power button in my opinion on the Shimano unit. And then if we look at this cable routing up top, what you're left with is like, I don't know what Shimano's really thinking with this system. Really, really thin gauge control wiring. And then that heads over to the controller over here. So not great, but I would classify that as me being really picky. This is where it just gets to be like, this is bad. So this grommet, not even fully inserted, like it's coming out. And then we have, this is the wheel speed sensor, world's thinnest cabling here, and this is where I take issue with it. You're right in line with the wheel, and shit's gonna just continually lie on top of this. And we get over here, like this cable here is just The Giant had a similar to this, but it wasn't as bad. Like this is just really an issue. I would not, if I do end up keeping this bike, or I should say its replacement, that would be an issue that I could foresee. Other than that, like the real way to do this correctly is the way Specialized would do it, which would be to route the cable right here through the swing arm back in, and then have a wheel speed sensor directly mounted on the disc. Overall, the frame, the welding is actually done pretty well. I don't really have too many concerns with that. The fork did feel a little budget, but that's is what it is. And then like overall, I don't care what anybody says, this RockShox having to run 250 plus PSI on a shock, the seals are not going to last as long as a Fox system. So overall, it's just some nitpicks on the bike, but I really have to evaluate if I'm going to keep this at all with this system. This fully encapsulated battery, like this, if I do end up keeping it, I'll probably end up hot gluing or providing some sort of rubber grommet on that, because like left bridge is pretty dusty. So let me know what you think about my little bitch video, but yeah, should I keep this thing or its replacement, or just ask for a refund? All right, one more thing. I just wanted to touch upon the quality of electronics and switchgear on it. So like I said, I'm thinking this might be the reason why my bike failed. And it's just, man, it feels like a Princess Auto Special. This is, all this is heat shrink that hasn't been shrunk down. So I don't know if that's intentional, just to reduce the abrasion, but if it was me, like actually heat shrink it, and then at a bare minimum, provide a rubber grommet around this where there is none, which again, water's just gonna sit here, it's gonna enter the frame, and there's no real good place for the water to drop down. It's just, I don't know. It's, the geometry is excellent on the bike, but there's just some issues here.